Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. I am joined by Kristin today. Kristin is one of the players in the Broadswords Actual Play podcast. And if you haven't listened to Victoria's episode, who is the DM of the group, go back and take a listen to that. Her episode was released back in December, right as their podcast was launching. So it's definitely a fun listen, and I'm so happy to have another member of the Broadswords on the podcast today for you to get to listen to. Two things of note. Our Actual Play podcast, Tales from the Five Nations, has launched as of the 30th of January. So by the time you're listening to this, there are definitely some episodes for you to check out and listen, and I hope you enjoy it. It's an Eberron campaign setting using the Savage Worlds game system. So if you're interested in learning about a new game system that's not Dungeons & Dragons Wizards of the Coast, definitely take a listen. And if you love Eberron as much as I do, or if you're interested in knowing more about the setting, it's definitely a good time to jump on and get in, because we're doing a bi-weekly release, so definitely you'll get the chance to be caught up and get to know more about the world of Eberron. And then as another note, we've partnered with Tabletop Loot to provide a discount for people that love all things dice and gaming related. So if you go to tabletoploot.com and you use the promo code Tales from the Fandom, just spell it out, Tales from the Fandom, and you'll get 10% off your order. So get yourself some awesome dice. They're a great company, and I can't speak highly enough about them. Fast shipping, great customer service all around. And as always, take a listen to one of the promos for a different independent podcast, and then you'll be joining me and Kristin talking all about her fandoms. Thanks a lot for listening.
Experience Dungeons & Dragons like you've never experienced before.
So girls, tell us about Dave.
So,
Tell me how great I am.
Dave's a little drunk and all.
Feel the tension.
Like some chips.
They don't have any chips.
Feel the excitement.
29 more javelins.
You gonna throw another javelin?
Well, 29 more.
Epic storytelling.
This island, as all the locals know, is the island of Atlantis, and you are not welcome here.
And with no swearing or profanity of any kind.
Ah, jeez.
This is
Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters.
Find out more at dungeonsdragonsdaughters.podbean.com, your favorite podcast service or preferred social site.
We're also on YouTube.
And welcome to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today I am joined by Kristin Flemons. She is a member of the Broadswords D&D Actual Play podcast, where she plays Yllairies, who is a wonderful character to get to know. The Broadswords, as of this recording, have released 4 episodes, but by the time this episode has come out, I'm sure that number will have been doubled at the very least. Kristin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. I have to say, I'm in love with Yllairies as far as a character.
Thank you so much. That really tickles me to hear.
What was fun is I had started talking with Victoria on Twitter before the podcast had even come to fruition or come out, and I watched as like character designs were released, and I really got psyched with the character choices, and then getting to put
Isn't the art amazing?
It is amazing. The art is,
oh my gosh, I love it.
The art is wonderful, and the characters are really just spot on. And then getting to get the voices and the actions behind the characters, like, just wonderful.
She's a real pain in the butt, hey? I really love how terrible she is sometimes. It's really fun.
It is. I liked after the first combat that you had in that first, I think it's episode 2, and then Yllairies is like, well, I'm sitting right here, and the caravan driver's like, no, you're not even coming with us. And then you had to drag your trunk with your unseen servant like 8 hours.
When Victoria first dropped that on us, I think she probably had to cut out a solid like 10 minutes of silence of me just like having my jaw hanging open. Of like, wait, what? You're doing what to me? You're kicking me out completely? Yeah, that was pretty great.
That is the Broadswords, and we'll be talking about it a little bit more later in the episode. But for people that don't know, like, this is one of the newest ones that I've come across, and you know, all female podcast for the Broadswords. So it's a wonderful, I guess it's a wonderful difference, or it's a wonderful thing to listen to hear, you know, an all female group play. And I've listened to Venture Maidens as well. And, you know, it's not like a comparison where, oh, well, Venture Maidens did it this way and Broadswords did it this way. It's just so incredible. And you can go back and listen to Victoria's episode to hear her talk about it. And we'll definitely get to more about the Broadswords. But you're into, and you said something before we started that I'd love to just talk about. You said you considered yourself a fake fan, or... Oh, you're a late bloomer,
fake nerd.
Fake nerd.
Yes, exactly. So I guess I didn't discover my true nerdy potential until I started my master's degree, and I'd never really played video games before. Wasn't really like, we never had consoles or computers in my house, and wasn't something that I just considered that I was bad at them, and I don't like things that I'm bad at. Generally. So I had moved in with my partner, and he had a PS4, and at one point I was like, well, there's no one here to see. Maybe I'll just start dabbling. I think it was a Lara Croft game that I picked up first. And I was like, oh, this is all right. And then my partner suggested that I try Mass Effect. And in that first week, I think I put in a full work week into Mass Effect. I was playing all night. Like, I feel like I had no resistances built up, right? So I was completely unprepared for an immersive story where it was not just like a book, but it was visual and audio as well. And I was the main character, and I could control choices. And it was so overwhelmingly wonderful. That I was playing until 3 a.m. and like checking over my shoulder to make sure my partner wasn't going to catch me still playing the game. And then I was like, holy crap, what have I been missing out on my whole life? Why did nobody tell me? So I've been just playing a little bit of catch up of video games and comics, and now tabletop role-playing games, just being like, crap, I've wasted so many good years. But at the same time, there's a lot of background knowledge that I don't have, and a lot of like classic games where it's like, I've never played them, and maybe I never will because I don't have the systems for it, and I don't have the gear, and I don't have that like history. Yeah.
Right. My wife is the same way. She didn't have cable until she got to college when she was 18. So everything before that, like everything growing up, like late 80s, early 90s to like mid 90s, she has no background on some of like the pop culture references. Like she's got musical, like the music stuff down, but anything like TV or movies, she's really not into it, or she dismisses it like kind of offhand. And sometimes it's been a struggle on getting her to like sit down and watch things. I'm like, oh, you got to watch this, and then she'll watch it and be like, okay, and I'm like, what? Like this is great stuff here, and she's like, okay, well, you know, she didn't live through that, so
yeah. I mean, it's pretty similar. Like we never had cable, and we had one computer in our house growing up, and we were given like 30 minutes on it every day outside of homework, so there was not a lot of digging into that internet culture. So I'm just now watching The Wire.
Okay.
And discovering that TV series and going, oh, okay, that's that cultural moment, and that is an amazing series. But yeah, I'm playing a catch up on a lot of things, and I feel like I I mean, I say fake nerd jokingly. I don't. I completely embrace and I'm just excited about finding the true depths of like my nerd potential, and that I just haven't reached it yet. That's fine. But I do think that there is some pressure, especially for women, often in sort of nerdy or fan communities, where there is that idea that some of them are fake ones, that they aren't like legit or they haven't earned their cred. So I guess I'm seeing it more on the joking side of like that's silly, but also just as like I'm excited to learn. And that's the best side of the nerdy things, is when people are so excited to share with you their interests.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I've had that same conversation topic come up previously on a few different episodes, you know, because I have a lot of cosplayers that come on the podcast, and it's a constant challenge for them, with them being challenged about like, oh, well, you might just dress like this character, but you don't know anything about the character. And that's, you know, that's the sucky downside, or the sucky part of like the culture, the fandom culture and everything, is that you still have those people that are, I guess the term now is gatekeeper. Like they want to keep it closed off to people, like whether it's women or just people, like if they don't consider you one of their own, like, oh, you can't like it type of stuff. And that's the thing that I
like
hate.
there was a cutoff point for the day where you could become interested in something.
Right.
It's the like, I liked that album before it was cool, before they went mainstream. So yeah, I just like to be upfront of and like excited about how little I know and how much that means I have yet to learn.
Right.
And how fun that is. It's so much fun. And everything that I start getting into, I like to force everyone around me to start getting into. So when we started doing the podcast, like I had no tabletop experience, and so I immediately bought the D&D starter kit for 5th edition and went home to visit my family for a month in Calgary and announced to my mother and my stepfather and my brother that we were now playing a Dungeons & Dragons game, and I was the dungeon master, and we were going to do this thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Enjoy. Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, it was really fun. So yeah, you just dive right in. And then there's so many other people, so many wonderful people who like, the minute that they sense any sort of interest from you, are so generous with their knowledge and so willing to share. Like I remember this comic book store in my old hometown of Montreal, where like just the proprietor was so welcoming and just so eager to be like, well, if you like this, like I know 20 other volumes that you might be interested in, and here's this and here's that. So yeah, that's the side that's so great, when people are so generous and so excited to bring more people into the fold. Absolutely.
And for everyone that listens to the podcast, if you're new, welcome. But whenever I have guests on, I send out a very like a short pre-show questionnaire, because I'd love to kind of pick and choose the fandoms that I get to talk to people about. So that way there's not like 50 episodes where everyone's talking about Harry Potter, which I will admit, like a lot of the early episodes, there's a lot of Harry Potter talk, or Star Wars, or Game of Thrones. But for you, like you had some really great choices that I was able to choose from. And I'm very appreciative of that. And one of the ones that stood out to me was it's a book series, but it's also now a TV show called The Expanse.
Have you read or seen this at all?
I have the first season of The Expanse on my computer, but I've not watched it. And I have the first book on my Kindle, but I've not read it.
Oh my gosh, they're so good. I don't even know where to begin telling you about how important it is that you get this in your life right now. They're so good.
Let's start with, how did you get into it? Was it the books first or the TV show?
It was the TV show first. Just sort of, I think my partner had heard something about it. It's like, there's this new sci-fi series we should check out. And actually the first episode, I had a lot of trouble understanding what was going on. And I was like, I don't like this. How wrong was I? Yeah, it's, I binged that show so hard and have gone back and rewatched part of it. But it's just, do you like sci-fi? Do you read or watch much sci-fi?
Oh yeah, I was a sci-fi nerd and a fantasy nerd. I kind of my initial points for obviously Star Wars, Star Trek, and Lord of the Rings are the first trio of groups of fandoms. But yes, I pretty much love almost anything science fiction or fantasy.
So for me, science fiction and fantasy, it's the world building that is so compelling of like creating these universes. They have made such a phenomenal universe here. The attention to detail and the scope of the imagination of, changing a few things in our world, going a few hundred years into the future, and imagining, Mars and Earth are sort of semi-rival societies, and there's mining for resources in the asteroid belt. What does that do to politics? What does that do to the economy? So they have this, I'm an anthropologist as well, sort of in my regular day-to-day life. So the creation of these groups of people and like the imagination of how their lives are going to work. So who are the people that mine resources for a living in the asteroid belt? How do you live in a place like that? What kind of society grows up around that? They've done such a crazily amazing job of imagining this belter society. And what does that do to human physiology if you grow up in 0G? And what does that do to language? And if you're constantly trying to communicate to people in spacesuits, what kind of gestures become important? You can't see people nodding or shaking their heads. So this whole creation of this big world and the technology. Sorry, I'm getting really excited.
It's okay. Go for it.
Okay, go. But I don't know a lot about rocket science, but I do know that a lot of people who do know a lot have had very high praises for the way that they've imagined the technology and what having certain kinds of very fast drives would do for communication and travel. And so they have this huge world that they've imagined, but then inside of that are these amazing characters and this amazing character drama of individual growth and relationships, and then on top of all of that is this sort of mystery of some sort of alien particle that's come in, and like this sort of supernatural element that then sets everything else in motion. So they just have done so many things well, from the macro scale story of like the political story to the micro scale story of the individual characters. And their characters are so interesting and really actually change quite a lot over the course of, now I'm thinking of the book series, because there's like 6 books currently published, I believe, and then a couple mini novellas in the middle. But like they actually have character arcs where characters change quite a bit. I'm trying to do this without having any spoilers. But yeah, and the characters are so amazing, and so often unconventional. I don't know. How do you want me to launch into the characters now too, or like?
Well, I was going to ask who your favorite characters were, but go ahead.
All right, what a segue, hey? So I have several, but I think my 3 favorite are Bobby, who is a Martian Marine, Naomi, who is a Belter engineer, and Avasarala, who is a human politician. I mean, on Earth. I'm like getting my worlds mixed up. They're all human, but she's on Earth. So Bobby is so cool. She is from Mars. She is part of the Marines, and she is huge. I can like not remember many other female characters who are described as being 6'6", over 200 pounds of pure muscle, absolutely terrifying in her power armor, just like destroys anything in her path. Like she is a force of nature physically, but then she's drawn into this political tension between Earth and Mars and being used in ways that she doesn't quite understand. So it's like the tension between how to act in different sort of theaters of war that aren't necessarily the battlefield. And there's a lot of loss that she goes through and sort of tension between different sides. She winds up in an unlikely alliance with Avasarala, who is high up in the Earth government. But yeah, I just love her so much. She is like, so I do powerlifting as one of my other hobbies.
Okay.
And it is pretty rare to see like a strong female character who is also literally a strong female character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is big, she is muscular. Like, the men around her are intimidated by her size and don't really know what to do with that. And that's like part of her description and part of the world that she works within. But yeah, that was really, really cool for me, for her to sort of exist in this world.
That is cool. I know when I was reading the description that you sent over about Bobby, the first character that I could think of that kind of matched up with that was a character from the Overwatch video game. Zenyatta is like a Russian, character, but she's like really tall and really muscular. If you look her up, like she's totally what I get, like the thing that I would probably equate to how you describe Bobby, as far as just like this massive, like tall, muscular, strong character. And I've never played Overwatch, but I've seen obviously like the pictures from the games and stuff. And I know people are real appreciative of having a character like that in a universe, because there's people that can relate to that, like being that tall or muscular. And as you said, like you're a power lifter, and I used to work with a woman who was also a power lifter, and you would never think, like with her, like the way that she looked and the way that she acted, you'd never think that she is a power lifter at all. But she's like, oh yeah, I'd like pick up like 300 plus pounds. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Strange hobbies everywhere, right?
Right.
Yeah. But it's so cool. And then, like you said, like to just have like a whole bunch of different characters. So then Naomi is also a phenomenal character. She's one of the main crew of people that you follow in the books and the TV show, and she's an engineer, and she's a belter, which means like she grew up in 0G, so she's extremely tall, but also extremely slender, to the point where like belters have difficulty living or even walking around in a full G. So they couldn't survive on Earth because they've never experienced gravity like that. So their lungs and their bones and everything aren't quite up to that much gravity. So it's a completely different physiology. But she's just an incredibly smart character who's also, I guess, no spoilers, but has a complicated past. And so her relationships with the rest of the team are often like sort of shrouded in a mystery that when it plays out is very cool. And then Avasarala is my other favorite, who is this older woman high up in the government on Earth. And my uncle was also watching this show while I was watching it, and the way he described it is she's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She's a little bit ruthless. She's a little bit cutthroat. She's extremely manipulative. But at the same time, she's one of the only people who seem to be able to get anything done. And maybe she's doing it for the right reasons. You don't really know for a long time. So she's also, I love them. I love them so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I talked to, I had an author on earlier this year, last year. I can never remember at this point. And he doesn't watch TV shows except for The Expanse. He said,
"Oh, really?"
that he loved the book series so much that that's the only TV show he was watching at that point, was that show.
They've done such a good job. I really can't overstate like just the creation of the world. It just feels so real and so immersive. And the TV show has also like really paid so much attention to working in all of these small background details, so that if you go digging for them, like you can find out, you can be like, oh, look, they're using these gestures, which are, how people in spacesuits would like communicate with each other, or like all of these things that, you know, if you were making a TV show, it'd be easy to leave out.
Mm-hmm.
As sort of like this background narrative from the book. But they've done such an amazing job, and the casting is so good. The woman who plays Avasarala is like terrifying and wonderful. And, God, she's great. Yeah, and Miller also is another fantastic character. He's sort of like the film noir private eye for the future. You know, for the belt is great. You got to watch it.
And you've read the books too, right?
Yeah, after I finished the show, I am voracious when it comes to series of fantasy and sci-fi. I just devoured it, one after the other. Just, yeah, they're excellent books.
Awesome. And I'm really happy that you say like that the TV show is really mindful of, you know, presenting how it is from the book and bringing stuff into that, because I know with other, you know, books that become TV shows or movies, sometimes there, you know, changes or differences, and you're like, wait a minute, but this is how it should be. And I like when they actually get close to what the book, you know, has been published, and you get to have that TV show.
Yeah, so far, like, they've made a few changes to make, I think, just to make things more understandable on the television format, but very few major ones. And I think everything that they've, like, I really like everything that they've done. So, I mean, to be fair, I watched it first and then I read it, but going back and rewatching it now, I hold to that statement.
They've done 2 seasons now, right? They're finished with their second?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully they'll continue the series and keep it going. Awesome. I'm definitely, I mean, I need to make time to watch it. I don't know, things just keep popping up, and dang it, I just need to,
right?
Like, I haven't even watched some of the shows I'm supposed to be watching, but I need to make time. There's not enough time in the day to watch everything I want.
This is true.
Now, on the flip side, going from science fiction to fantasy, you are a player of a video game that really drew my attention when it came out, and I have yet to play the first one, and apparently now there's more. And
yes,
it's called, I think is it Divinity Original Sin?
Yes. What a good game. Yeah, that is, I think playing Divinity set me up well for starting to play D&D, because it's a very similar mechanics wise. I can see how much they've drawn. Well, I mean, a lot of video games have drawn a lot from role-playing, tabletop role-playing games, but it's a turn-based and like skill-based strategy combat kind of system. But it's an amazing game to play co-op as well, which is why I started playing it, was because my partner was looking for something. This is sort of before I'd really started to play many games on my own, and he was looking for something that we could play together and that wouldn't be as sort of talent intensive as maybe a shooter.
Right.
Where I'm very proud of myself for having moved to like the normal difficulty level on most of the games that I play. So my reaction speed and my ability to aim is often leaves something wanting. So a game where you can like sit and think about, I'm going to cast that spell and all I have to do is click on it, is maybe a little bit less stressful at the beginning, but it gets very stressful because it's very, very difficult. We are currently stuck at the very final boss battle of the second game, and we tried to win this fight. I think we're playing on normal difficulty. For so long last night. There was a lot of cursing. There were some things were thrown. But yeah, this is such a great game. It's and I really love how the developers are so tongue in cheek. But I think it takes a lot of skill to write a world that is convincing in itself and that is a sincere world with like an epic storyline and like grand stakes, and still be able to be throwing in a bunch of tongue-in-cheek jokes and like self-referential things and just being really silly at the same time. Like that's a hard balance to strike if you're not going full satire and you're not going full earnest epic fantasy time. To walk that line is, I think, very impressive and so much fun to play, because you can get totally caught up in the epic storyline and the characters. But then, like, my favorite skill is Pet Pal. Have you heard about Pet Pal?
I have not heard of Pet Pal.
Oh, man. So if you take Pet Pal as one of your talents, you can talk to animals.
Okay.
And the animals have the funniest things to say. The animals in this game are maybe one of my favorite things. In one of the first worlds, there is a crab that you can talk to, and she is convinced that she is the sorcerer queen of the universe who is going to destroy you all, and you shall grovel at her feet. And then there are animals with really goofy accents, and then there's animal, like, the animals will also tell you helpful things sometimes, where they're like, oh, this person did that thing, and you're like, oh, okay, that's where I find this whatever quest item I'm looking for. But the comedy and the wit that comes from talking to the pigs and the chickens. One of my favorite little quests that I did in the second game that we're playing right now is there are these chickens that you can go talk to, and they're like, eggs have been stolen by these void-woken demon creatures, and they want you to go get the eggs. And when you go defeat the demons, you find that only one of the eggs has survived. The other ones are all smashed. And so you bring this egg back, but it hatches into like a hybrid demon chicken chick. And if you come back later, you find that it's actually killed all the chickens. So it killed the mother chicken and everyone. But then if you use there's a skill that you get where you can see spirits. So if you remember to click the like spirit vision, then you can talk to the ghost of the dead mother chicken, who then implores you to help the baby chicken anyway, because it's not his fault that he's this like demon chicken. And like you need to take him to his father, who might be able to help him, who is some sort of magic rooster. So then you're like escorting this baby demon chicken to the magic cockerel, who is his father, and then you have to try and convince this chicken to take on this demon. But in the end, he didn't. So this minor spoiler, sorry if anybody's really excited about this quest, but he wouldn't take the chicken back, and it turned into this battle, and we had to he tried to kill the demon chicken, so the demon chicken summoned all these other demon chickens, and there's these demon chickens running everywhere, and then I couldn't save him, and I was so sad. I was so sad that my demon chicken baby was dead.
Oh my god.
And this is just one of, like, there's so many of these little goofy things that you can totally pass by, but just like the love and attention and the detail that go into like dreaming that quest up, and that you have to be able to talk to the animals, you have to think about maybe there's a ghost chicken to talk to, is so good.
That is crazy.
Isn't it?
Like, I had read a lot about the game when it came out, and about how detailed it was, and how you've got to really be prepared and think about things. I had no idea that there was a demon chicken storyline. Like, that's insta-buy right there.
Right? They're so funny. There's so many little things. Like, I'm trying to think of the other great stories recently. I think there was a dog with a Scottish accent recently that we were chatting with, but I can't remember what his story was. But like, there's a story behind all of it, and then just other little clever details where in the first game you could make a lot of money by going around stealing art off of the walls and then selling them. So this was sort of our main source of economy, is like I would send my rogue in invisible and just steal the art from everywhere. And in this game, all of the art is named after different Kickstarter supporters. So it'll be portrait of so-and-so who was a Kickstarter backer and portrait of so-and-so else, which I thought was really clever because, like, you know that everybody's stealing that art. Everybody's picking that up and seeing that. So it's a nice little... The economy for the art isn't as good in this one, but they found us out, all of us art thieves.
Now, I know you said that you were looking for a game to play cooperatively versus, the standard like shooter. How did you come across Divinity as that game?
See, now you're outing me. I am often a beneficiary of just sitting back on the couch and having my partner be like, hey, here's a cool thing that maybe we should have in our life. Or maybe here's a neat thing that we should do. Let's watch The Expanse. Let's play Divinity. So that's also, I've got to give him kudos on that especially at that point in my life, I was not keeping up with what games were coming out or what games people liked. I have a built-in curator who feeds me good content that I then dive way too deep into and go for days. Well, he started reading the books. He has not finished them. And I'm like, dude, you gotta catch up. I need someone to talk to about this. So yeah, but after the first game, we were both really stoked about the second game coming out. And we actually got to play a little preview. We went to PAX West here in Seattle in the fall and got to play like a little 10-minute. No, I think they gave us 20 minutes, which was barely enough time to even like look at the character creator, but still.
Right.
Yeah. So much time.
Now, I have read on Divinity for the character creation that you have to be very careful, I guess, on like what skills you start off with, because I at least the article that I read said, you need to pick up X, Y, and Z skills because if you don't have them, then the game is infinitely harder.
Well, I would definitely say Pet Pal is a must-have because you gotta have that content. There's so much content that you'd be missing otherwise. Other than that, I mean, I get so stressed out at that stuff where I'm like, oh no, if I make the wrong decision now, it's ruined forever. It's a lot of things to keep in your head at once. So in the second game, they do have, once you clear the first area, they do have a mirror in the bottom of the boat where you can respec your character completely for free. So that is pretty nice where if you're like, oops, I done screwed up. This is not what I wanted. It is now completely possible for you to go and fix that up. I'm maybe not the best strategic character builder. I get really excited by everything, and I tend to dilute my characters because I'm like, I want all of it. I just want to be able to do all the things. So my current character that I'm playing with is does the polymorph stuff because I thought that just sounded really cool, of like growing tentacles and wings and that sort of stuff. Then also necromancy and also like two-handed sword bludgeoning kind of things, which I don't know is the like most synergistic combination of things, but we're doing okay. So I think there's different levels depending on like how intense you are as a player. If you're like really into getting those synergies right and you want to play it on a higher difficulty as well, versus like the classic, then yeah, I think it would be pretty unforgiving if you had a bad character build. And I think I did make some pretty big mistakes in the first game that definitely made me quite underpowered. But that being said, I got through all of the first game and now all of the second game except for the last battle, and I did that while making many mistakes and I still made it. So if you're not that kind of player, it's still very much open to you.
Awesome. I know that it's been on sale a few times through Steam, so I'm very excited at some point of picking it up and then eventually making time for it.
Do it for the demon chickens.
Demon chickens. Gotta do it for the demon chickens.
Yeah. Other things too, but the demon chickens are... You don't get that in every gaming experience.
See, there you go. Like, you got a perfect box quote right there. Like, do it for the demon chickens.
Oh, man. I wonder if they'd take me on as a promoter.
There you go. Contact Kristin.
Yes, please.
So we've talked science fiction, we talked fantasy, and now we're kind of going to go roll it up into a ball with podcasts and tabletop gaming, because what came first with the Demon Chicken? Was it tabletop gaming or was it the Adventure Zone?
Ooh, definitely listening to the Adventure Zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's roll into that one first before we hit tabletop gaming. So I've heard of the Adventure Zone. I like listening to actual play podcasts, but the Adventure Zone has a lot of episodes, and I have not yet tackled the monumental task, I guess, of trying to get through their catalog. So did you discover the Adventure Zone early on? Was it like discovering it like middle?
I discovered it this spring, I think. Late winter, early spring. So right when they were nearing the finale of this arc that they've been doing for the last 3 years. So I think I picked it up in March this year. So I found it because I'd been watching a lot of Polygon videos on YouTube. And so was really enjoying the like Touch the Skyrim that Griffin was doing, and then the Monster Factory that Griffin and Justin McElroy did. And so I was basically just like hunting for more of their content. I was like, these people are funny. I like what they do. What else do they do? And I found the Adventure Zone. And then I did nothing but listen to the Adventure Zone for a long, long time. So when I get into something, I think I may have mentioned this earlier, I get really into it really quickly. It's sort of an on-off switch in my head. Like, if it's off, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. But when it's on, it is like my partner couldn't talk to me because I was wearing headphones 24/7 kind of deal. So I got really into it really quickly. But I don't know. Have you watched any of their other content that the brothers McElroy do?
I've seen nothing as far as I'm aware.
They're so funny. They're very, very good. good boys who do very funny goofs. And so I already really liked their style of a comedy and commentary and sort of the quick wit. And then they start playing Dungeons and Dragons with their other brother Travis and their dad, and that's adorable. And they all, of course, obviously have very good rapport, and it's a very funny broadcasting family, so they have a lot of skill in that department. So right from the beginning, it's very funny, it's very entertaining. But after the first arc or so, it starts to become something a lot more than that. It remains exceptionally funny and goofy. But the universe that Griffin winds up creating and the characters that come out of this and the stories that spin out, I was realizing that I had started to spend as much or more time crying as I was laughing. And I'm a big crier. Like, that's not something new, but it's just really, really beautiful. Some of the characters are just so beautiful, and it's also nice because like I like the dark stuff. I like me some grimdark horror and horribleness, and really get down in those terrible feelings. But the Adventure Zone is such a refreshing positivity. Like, there's a lot of struggle and bad things that happen, but at the end of the day, the feel of the show is that people are good things are going to happen. Yeah, it's an extremely, I think that, and this was very intentional, that it was extremely positive and affirming and sort of soul cleansing place to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a, I don't know if I'm like finding the right words to describe this, but there's a joy to it. There's a joy that, especially like, you know, this is near the end, so this is maybe a little ways down the listening track for you, but towards the end, there's that certainty that, you know, the show is about how much you love these characters and how much they love each other, and that is not something Griffin's willing to like step on for sort of dramatic tragedy. It's like, this is a place of positivity, and I don't know, I love it so much. The characters are so good.
And I have to add, you would say go back to the beginning and just listen from the first episode on.
100%. Yeah, no question. And it's a lot of fun. Like, you're like, there's no reason not to do that. And the story really, it's linear. Like, you wanna like get caught up in it as they start getting caught up in it, and all of the things build on each other. So I would definitely recommend starting from the beginning and just immersing yourself in that sweet D&D goodness. And I think it's different than a lot of other actual play podcasts, because they are more interested in narrative and storytelling than maybe being faithful to like game mechanics
Right.
all the time. Like they play Dungeons and Dragons, but as they say, they sometimes play Calvin Ball with the rules. So I know some people who are sort of more sticklers for the rules and the mechanics have gotten on their case about that, but I really enjoyed it because they're all such incredibly talented storytellers, and ultimately that's what I'm there for, both in terms of listening to an actual play podcast and in terms of playing myself, is I'm there for the story and the characters. So I think that makes Victoria a great fit for me.
That's awesome.
As a dungeon master.
Now, you listened to the Adventure Zone. At what point did you say, I want to get into tabletop role-playing?
I mean, I think about halfway through the Adventure Zone, I was like, this is so fun. This is a game. This is something that I could do. This doesn't have, like, I think maybe it was my pending realization that it was actually going to finish, and I wasn't going to be able to listen to it for hours every day ad infinitum. Where I was like, well, you know what? I really enjoy fantasy. I really enjoy fictional worlds. I really enjoy characters. And I really like games. And I'm a little bit of a dramatic, goofy human being. I think this is something I would really like. The problem is I didn't have any friends who I knew who played these at all. So I, when Victoria posted in the Facebook group that we were both a part of that she was going to run some games online, this was sort of my first opportunity that I saw to give this a shot. And so I jumped on that pretty quick and started pestering her about letting me in.
And so your first playing experience, was it the podcast?
No, almost, but not
Almost.
quite. My first play experience, Victoria started a Star Wars Edge of Empire game.
Okay.
And I mean, I've seen all the Star Wars films. I don't know any of the broader canon particularly well. And so I was a little intimidated. I was like, how am I going to role play Star Wars when I don't know Star Wars that well? But we only wound up doing a couple sessions of that. And then a spot opened up in another game that she ran online, which was a D&D 5e campaign. So she allowed me to sort of hop in on that part way. And so I made a character for that. And then my partner also got interested in this, and he wanted to start running a cyberpunk campaign.
Okay.
So in the span of a couple weeks, I'd made like 4 or 5 different characters. I was just like, I was just a character creation machine. But yeah, so then I got to do, I think, only 2 sessions of that game. And that's when Victoria emailed us to be like, hey, so I have this idea about a podcast. Would you like to play? And obviously the answer was yes, absolutely. Please, can we start now? Can we start yesterday?
Awesome. For those people listening, I mean, obviously we started talking about it at the beginning of the show. You are part of the Broadswords, which is an all-female actual play podcast. And you play Yllairies, who is a hilarious character in her own way. How did you come up with Yllairies as the character that you were going to play for the podcast?
Oh, it's funny because so obviously I haven't done that many tabletop RPGs before, but in all of the video games, and like, I like rogues. What I always want to play is a rogue. I made a rogue type character for the Star Wars game. I made a rogue for the other D&D game Victoria was making. I like them. So I was sort of like, I can't play another rogue. There's too many rogues. And also, I think Victoria mentioned in her conversation with you that she sort of gave us the beginner version of like, you know, you don't have to do this, but a typical party composition would be a tank, DPS, and healer.
Right.
Those are skills that you might want to have. And so I was like, okay. Bianca had sort of expressed interest in doing a barbarian character. So I was like, okay, that's that. I don't know. I like being a shithead, kind of. So I didn't really want to be a healer because, I mean, I think that could be interesting, but that wasn't like to be an asshole healer, maybe could be a really fun thing to try out. But I feel like it's more interesting for characters and for narrative to have problems being thrown into the mix. So my first idea was like, okay, if I'm not going to be a backstabby rogue and I'm not going to be wielding a giant sword, I want to throw fireballs. So really, Yllairies comes out of the fireball. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna, who throws the fireballs? And I just pictured this really irritable, sort of snooty, arrogant wizard character throwing a lot of fireballs. And so at the very first, she was very one-dimensional like that. She's going to be the snob with flaming hands, basically. Which is funny because, like, I don't know. I feel like this is a character who is about as different from my actual personality as I could get. I abhor conflict in like interpersonal relationships at all costs. Like I will bend over backwards to smooth that over. So to have the chance to play this like privileged person who is completely tone deaf to social cues and does not care about anybody else around her is really fun. It's really interesting. But I started writing her backstory, and I think when I was filling out your questionnaire, I mentioned that you might have to tell me to stop because I usually write too much. Victoria asked us to write up brief backstories for her so that she could she's going to be doing some background episodes with us each individually so that you get a sense of where these characters come from and what their backgrounds are and why are they the way they are. So I started writing this. I wound up with a little novella. I have written a tiny Yllairies novella that basically I sent it to Victoria and I was like, I'm not quite done, but maybe you want to see this. And she was like, stop writing. Stop it. I need something to work with. I have to put stuff into this as well. This is not just the Kristin production. I was like, yes, but I have so many ideas. And I've gotten really like, oh my gosh, I don't like, no spoilers, but her backstory, I am so heartbroken for this girl now that I've like written out this this background and sort of her flaws and like the way that she copes with it. Like she started as like a complete stereotype. She's an asshole who throws fireballs. And now I'm just like, oh no, poor Yllairies. No one understands her and she's so vulnerable, but she doesn't know how to connect. And I've got this whole sob story that nobody else knows about, especially not the other players. The other players are like, damn, what a jerk.
I love
you just don't understand.
Yeah, that's one of the things I loved about playing or even as like a DM or storyteller was getting to either write backgrounds for my characters. I'd write like 6, 7, 8 pages and be like, well, here you go. And I know sometimes it'd be a little bit overwhelming for like the DMs, but then they'd say on the other side, thanks for having all these NPCs I can now put into the eventual story, which is always a wonderful thing, is just having like, well, can't I just find this person who can help me? Like, it's in my backstory.
Yes, and if you write a big enough backstory, then you can always find things in it that maybe actually weren't there, but nobody had the time to read it. So yeah, no, I know that I've become a little, well, I don't know if it's too deep into the character, if it's just deep enough, but I do know like at one point where we were recording and Keela and Maypri were sort of like mean to Yllairies, which seems silly because Yllairies is the mean one, but they did something in retaliation and I was like, oh, my feelings are actually hurt. I'm actually sad now. I was like, it's just a game. It's just a game. You are not Yllairies. So I'm working on that not bleeding into my character too much.
I listened, because we're recording this December 5th, but I've listened to all 4 episodes. I actually listened to the 4th episode today before I got home, so I could, be educated enough. And I really like, and I don't know if I could even call it the trio of characters have a relationship, but I feel like Yllairies is on the outside looking in with Maypri and Keela. I know part of it is the expulsion of Yllairies from the caravan of going to the Moss Stones and whatnot, but it's very much like watching or listening to how you play Yllairies, whether it's in combat or in the social situations or with everything that happened in the 4th episode, is definitely I like listening to see what is Yllairies going to do in reaction to the situation that's been presented. Because sometimes I'm not even expecting it at all. And I think it's either the 1st or 2nd episode where it's like, okay, who's going to draw my bath? Like that had me rolling. Like you're in a caravan type situation and you are looking for someone to find some bathtub and draw you a bath.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like the most ridiculous thing that she could possibly demand. That they've lugged a bathtub, or that she would have expected them to. Yeah, it's really fun, and I really, really enjoy that our characters don't necessarily like each other right off the bat. Hopefully they will at some point. I guess there's no guarantee there. But yeah, my sense is like, Yllairies is very off-putting socially immediately, especially to somebody who's not from the nobility. Keela seems very maybe secretive, maybe a little distrusting of other people, so that might take a while. And that Maypri is just sort of clueless and like well-meaning, but also a little judgy sometimes. So I really enjoy that, as we're sort of figuring out this game and everything, that that the relationships are going to have to develop and that they won't necessarily be ones of like easy friendship. I think that's really interesting of like getting to know characters through the characters getting to know each other. I'm having a ton of fun with it, and especially some of the more recent episodes that we've recorded but haven't released yet. There were some where we were like just crying. We were laughing so hard. So yeah, I think we're sort of getting into the swing of things even more, and sort of, yeah, I don't know. It's really fun to like get to know these characters, because I don't feel like I necessarily know Yllairies that well yet either. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it is nice to have the characters kind of develop on their own. Like, yes, they're all in the same area for the first 3 episodes, but you're not friends. You're not like a traveling party together yet. You're not forced to be together until episode 4, where it's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do what has been asked of us, even though, you know, at that time they're still not cool with Yllairies, and Yllairies is like, do I have to? But it's definitely, like, I liked getting to have that experience. Like, there were, I think, was it Yllairies who was upset that the caravan person got healed rather than her getting healed? I can't remember. Yes. And I was like, you know, like, I could see that. Like, you're the player character. Why are you healing like this NPC? But at the same time, story-wise, it kind of makes sense. And like, she doesn't really know Yllairies at that point. She's not like Team Yllairies, you know. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, just the like, I loved both my like indignation of like, you heal some like random caravan guard over me. Look, I'm the noble here, and then Tracy / Keela being, he was literally on fire. Like, he's literally on fire. Like, what do you want? But it was a really big burn on her leg. It was like 2/3 of her hit points. I think I had like 1 or 2 hit points left after that. So I was like, excuse me, you're healing the NPC and I'm over here dying.
Yeah, that was a vicious damage roll on that one. Like, when I heard the answer, I was like, oh my gosh, like, holy cow.
We're very squishy right now. Like level 2, and I'm just the wizard in her stupid noble gown. So I'm like, yeah, the resilience factor, not so high.
Now, I know you said that at some point you're going to have some background stuff come up with like with Yllairies and do background episodes. Without spoiling, what's on the horizon for Yllairies and company in the Broadswords?
So, without spoiling, I mean, I can't spoil that much because there's a lot that I don't know. Victoria holds her cards really close to her vest, and we've only recorded maybe another 3 or 4 episodes beyond what's released right now. So I can tell you that the mysteries continue. There's a lot of more mysterious, like, we're not letting go of this mysterious spirits and visions of Rashomon yet. That's definitely gonna continue to play a big role in going forward. And I don't know. I think what you can expect is just more mysteries opening up on themselves. I keep looking for answers, and all I get are more questions.
I like that, and I like the whole, because I talked with Victoria about how she chose Rashomon, and I really am digging the setting and the mystery and the spookiness factor of the episodes.
I think it's really cool, and I guess like one thing, like, I think we all sort of discover that we're tied to this landscape in ways that we didn't know about and we didn't expect. So that's really neat. Of like, what the heck is going on here?
Well, Kristin, I think we're almost out of time, but
yeah,
where can people find you or find the Broadswords online so that way they can listen?
Yeah, so the Broadswords is our website is thebroadswords.com, and then we're on all of your standard social media as at the Broadswords, and I'm on Twitter also, usually tweeting about Yllairies at kflem.
Wonderful. And I'll have all the links in the show notes and on our Facebook page, so that way everyone can check out the Broadswords, because it's unlike the Adventure Zone with like the 3 years of stuff. You guys have a very short
modest
back
catalog.
It's a modest
Yeah.
catalog by the time this episode comes out. And the one thing that I love is that your episodes are right around the 30 or 40 minute mark, and it makes a very quick and easy listen. But at the same time, that 30 or 40 minutes has so much stuff going on in it. It is just wonderful. Wonderful stuff.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really glad that you're enjoying it.
Oh, I am digging it. You guys, the Broadswords is, I think I have like a top 5, and the Broadswords is part of that top 5 of what it's like a must listen of when it comes in. It's like, okay, Broadswords, I know when I'm listening to it.
Thank you.
Well, Kristin, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with me on this podcast, and I look forward to just hearing the continued adventures of Yllairies. And when I watch The Expanse or read the books, I will let you know, and
Please do.
we could have a whole episode just about The Expanse.
Yes, easily. No problem.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.